Welcome to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.
Welcome to another episode of Slackin' Off. I'm your host, Brady Slack. And today we're talking about freight, which is a topic that I'm not personally involved in, but I'm actually really excited to talk to our guest, Jason Bauch. Jason, thank you for coming on. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Brady, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure meeting you. I'm thankful Todd introduced us, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation because there is so much going on in the transportation world. You guys read about it in the news, and it's kind of like computers in a way. A lot of people hear about it, they know it, they know it exists, but they really don't know what it does. Like what the ramifications about all this stuff is. So I mean, I'm looking forward to working with you and getting all this out and just kind of talking about how the industry works and the opportunities in the industry. Really
good. It's always interesting. So coming from my world, the tax world, we always look at industries that are not sexy by any means, but if
Right.
you would refer, they're kind of the backbone of America. You look at farming, transportation, these industries. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money in these industries because there's lots of opportunity, but they're niched down to a point to where if you aren't introduced into them in a certain way, or you aren't brought up in them in a certain way, you overlook them, I think. And freight is one of those that I would think is kind of that. Why do you think, well, one, it's not sexy, but why do you think freight often gets overlooked? Tell me from your perspective what it looks like.
I think a lot of it is just it's automatic. It's kind of like you walk into the grocery store and there it is, meat. You don't think about what it takes to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's automatic for people now. And when there's a disruption in what makes it automatic is when people start taking notice to what's happening. And there's a variety of reasons why there's disruptive natures in different industries, but primarily in the transportation industry, a lot of it has to do with the laws that are being implemented or currently exist that just make it difficult for people to operate. I mean, I'd have to say that's one of the larger problems that we have.
Well, and I think freight or transportation in a whole has been highlighted over the last 3 or 4 years, largely due to COVID and manufacturing and the delays in distribution. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're working on a global market, as we do, and things are, if there's a break in the chain, the chain just comes flying apart, right? So during COVID, we saw an influx of delays from ocean containers coming in, which created a vacuum, and it subsequently slowed everything down hitting the shelves. And that's why you started hearing it on the news, like the shelves are bare, the shelves are bare. Well, it's because you have nobody working.
Yeah.
So they're not producing, they're not offloading, they're not doing a lot of things. And then you do have industries that are continuing to move. I mean, we didn't stop during COVID, and we were fortunate to be positioned very well in food. And so, people did nothing but stay home and eat, right?
Yeah.
Order Amazon. That was like the two things they did. And so we've benefited from COVID actually. But, I say that my industry is bulletproof in the sense that being a freight broker, we adjust quickly. We're kind of like water, right? We assume the shape of whatever the issue is. I mean, as long as we can stay dynamic in that sense, you're going to be successful. It's like any type of industry. If you can move and change with the times, you're going to be able to be successful in what you do. And if you're lucky, you can actually get in front of the problems. COVID actually was a blessing for us in another way. We're in the process of launching a new company called Lure Miles based on that. Lure Miles is effectively a very automated way of doing what we do. If you will, it's like Amazon for transportation. So,
okay.
We're changing the rules. we're changing the things with Lure Miles, but I know we're not really here to talk about that today. But
no, you're good.
Transportation.
Let's dive into that in just a bit. I want to start out with how you got started. So a little bit of background. So background on why I'm excited for this conversation, and we briefly touched on it before we hit record here. But my father-in-law runs a company where he distributes bread products to school districts, and so we often have conversations about freight and who they're using and the drivers that they use and costs and acquisitions and how they could maximize profits by using certain freights and different things like that. And then I actually have a buddy who actually is he brokers freight as well. He started doing that after a church service mission and got home, and he's been very successful at doing that. But how did you? Not a lot of people are in the transportation or freight brokering industries. How did you get your start into the freight brokering industry, Jason?
I started off as a driver back in 1996,
Okay.
and I was involved in a really bad head-on collision as a driver. That
Wow.
took me out of the. Hey, I'm okay. I was about 22 when it happened, and
Okay.
it changed my life. And I had to make a decision if I was going to just, you know, fold up and just, figure it out and exist, or if I was going to thrive. And I chose to thrive. It took me a little while, but I bounced back, and I ended up moving into the office on a light duty position that to which I never really left. I still to this day hold a CDL, but I don't use it. It's in a holding pattern. Texas lets you put them in a holding pattern. I don't know if all the other states do that, but so I don't have to go get medical checks every 2 years. But
Okay.
I mean, it was ridiculous. I haven't driven a truck in almost 22 years, something like that. I mean, it's been a long time.
Since then,
Yeah, I mean, I can. I just don't want to. So,
are
but
there?
I worked my way through the office, and when 9/11 hit, I was doing air freight, and
Okay.
at the airport, and everything's quiet is really kind of wild. I mean, like you hear ambient sounds around you at all times, and when that just stops, it's creepy. You're
Kind of
outside.
eerie.
Yeah, yeah. At the time, I smoked cigarettes, so I was outside, and I'm like, it's nothing. It's just like in the country all of a sudden. It's just so strange. Anyway, so we're moving food, and we had to find a way to continue the process. I saw an opportunity here because the planes were all down, so that meant all air freight companies were suffering from the same problem. So I pivoted into working on putting consolidated trucks together. That would really be the spark that lit up what this does. Now, I didn't know what a freight broker was, and I didn't know much about trucks at all. In fact, my boss was kind of upset with me when I first told him this because you don't even know what a trailer can, how much product a trailer can hold, what the weight is, what the costs are. I'm like, I don't know. We'll learn, man. We'll figure it out. I fast forwarding a little bit. I ended up moving down to Texas, and I started working with a small trucking company that had a freight brokerage. They were doing about $1 million in revenue at the time. We built that up to about $5 million in revenue before the 0809 crash. And that was the first time after that I immediately went on my own, and I've been on my own as an agent moving forward until I took a position as a president for Premier Logistics back in 2018.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the escalation of everything. So it allowed me to grow as a person, and I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version of this thing. It's actually part of a book, so it's a much lengthier story than I'm making it. But I want to, there's so many details and things we don't have all day for this. But yeah, so that was the escalation of why I became a freight broker, how I kind of fell into it, and it was really quite by accident. It was out of necessity. You know, we had a
So
job to do, and we found really we were very fortunate in the sense that because we were able to do it this way, we were able to still charge air freight rates for truckload product. So I was able to move expedited stuff in an expedited way.
probably meant you were making a lot more money than if you were still able to charge airfare rates just putting them on a truck.
Right, we had so much less overhead.
Yeah.
So it really changed the model of that company too. It's not that the model didn't exist; it just wasn't being utilized. So what we did was we reenacted that, and it became a big part of their business for a long time.
Now, so that was back in 2008. Obviously we went through COVID. There's been lots of supply chain issues since then. What's the current state of freight as it relates to what our economy is doing right now? Obviously, there's lots of questions around what the economy is doing, but what is the current state of freight and what our economy is doing right now?
The freight market is doing something very interesting. It's diminishing. The capacity is exceptional because let me back up. We have a driver issue in the sense
Okay.
that the median age of a driver is about 60 years old, if I remember right. And so these guys are going to want to retire, right? And the
Sure.
trucking company, they made it a law that you had to go through driver's school to get a CDL. No more was the farmer who could just get the CDL, go to go walk into the DMV and get the CDL. You had to go through a class of some type. So these companies were churning out about 30,000 drivers a month, and nationally, and it has diminished down to about 10,000 drivers a month. This is not an industry that's drawing people in, and it's not retaining drivers either. So that's where the capacity issue is really stemming from, and that's one of the reasons why we built Lure Miles, was to make them better at what they do, put them in a position where they're going to win more often. Because
Sounds like accounting.
Sorry?
I said it sounds like accounting. There's more people retiring and not enough people coming into the industry. It sounds like we have the same problem.
Yeah. I just found out my CPA was in the hospital. I'm like, oh no. No, not yet. No, not yet.
So driver issue, what kind of outlook do you think the freight industry will have as it relates to the drivers? Are they increasing wages for the drivers? Are they increasing freight prices because they've got to increase driving rates? What's that going to do you think?
Yeah. So here, in 2020, the freight market was valued at $1.1 billion. Okay. Let's fast forward to 2028. It's projected to boom to about almost $14 billion, just freight.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's companies that do exceptional amounts of volume to the marketplace. You've got TQL and CH Robinson easily dominate the market. Okay. Between those companies, they are the leader. And you've got then a bunch of smaller companies that are coming in at $200 million, 100 million, and then trickling down. That's freight brokers. Now, trucking companies, they're going through their own thing. Those guys are going out of business quite rapidly, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. A lot of these guys. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. I apologize. If the freight companies are having their own difficulties, who's picking up the freight? Like, who are you guys still utilizing for brokering freight? Are they kind of independent individuals who go purchase their own truck and do sort of like a hot shot trucking setup, or what?
What you end up with is a market of people, mom and pop companies, 1 to 20. That's really our sweet spot. We want to work with people that have between 1 and 20 trucks.
Okay.
And then what I like to do is I'll become a specialist in a lane. So, for example, we do a lot of stuff out of New Jersey to California.
Okay.
Lots of stuff, And so I'll have 4 or 5 guys that will have trucks that will do that kind of thing. And so I just line those guys up, and when I get a call, hey, we need this. Yeah, no problem. Okay, gotcha. I line it up and say, okay, well, you can do it. Great. Nope, you can't do it. Okay, cool. No problem. Next guy, until I get the right guy to fit the bill. And like you say yes, and then the time starts ticking. The clock's ticking. You got to get this thing handled. It becomes challenging at times, but that's why you have these relationships, because you want to have regular guys doing regular things for you that they can rely on you.
And if you're based in Texas, how is it that you're connected? Is there are there forums? How are you connecting with some of these drivers in some of these other locations to be able to broker the freight?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's through relationships. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've got relationships that stem from 15 years. And then also you'll go out on load boards and you'll meet new people that way. There becomes a verification process to make sure that they are a legit company, that they're not doing anything that could be damaging to you or your customer. And then you're really just watching them, and it's like any new relationship, you're kind of walking through the paces to make sure everybody's doing what they think they're supposed to be doing, and taking care of the business the way I would want it done.
So it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe help me understand, it sounds like to me that the majority of people who are moving into this, well, the last 3-4 years, we went through the Great Resignation, where people kind of quit their W-2 jobs and started their own businesses, if you will. Sounds like a lot of people are coming from the space as a driver, buying their own trucks or truck, and then needing someone like yourself, Jason, to put freight on their truck to then move it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is absolutely accurate. So what you really saw was, as the market gets better, more people come into it, buy new things. As the market diminishes, people that didn't run their businesses correctly fold up or have to scale back. I mean, it's just anything. It's as easy as breathing. It's just, that's what happens. And I would anticipate the market changing a little bit towards the end of the year. It'll probably get tight between December and March, and then it'll loosen up again depending on what happens. And then as we get into the election, things will get all kind of wonky. Election years are all bets are off in election years. Who's in office? Everybody puckers up. It's going to be.
I think I'd be really good at freight brokering. It sounds like our industries are about the same. There's a shortage in accountants, and election years are always crazy, or at least the year preceding an election are always crazy, because someone's always trying to get elected, and they always introduce new tax law to try and appease the people. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you watch fuel do things too. You can watch fuel just The moment Biden took office, fuel went up.
Yeah,
And that was based on the futures as fuel was being projected. Knowing people knew that the laws were going to change, so that the market started changing based on that. And it didn't really make any ripples for about the first 6 months, but I get a report every week that says, "Hey, fuel went up. Hey, fuel went up," and it would go
yeah,
up systematically until it actually became this massive thing, and people were like, "Oh my God, fuel went up." Well, yeah, but it's been going up the whole time. See, this is a new
sure.
story. You just opened it up to the right page.
So if you're looking kind of that 6 to 8 month time period into the future, what adjustments are you making right now for that time period? Because we've had, I just read an article today stating that the Feds are considering another interest rate hike, which would be the highest rates have been in the past 22 years. Are those kinds of things affecting what you're doing? And if so, how are you planning for those things?
Yeah, so one of our customers is the world's largest cardboard box maker. Okay,
Interesting.
which is a leading indicator of what the market's going to do because nobody's going to buy a cardboard box if they have nothing to put in it.
Hmm. Okay.
And so, we look at that kind of thing and go, okay, how much are we shipping with these guys? And so when we start seeing their business pick up, then we got to kind of feel like, okay, the market's starting to pick up again. And it's not doing great. They're doing okay. I mean, they're not hurting, but they're not like they were 2 years ago.
Sure.
And, you know, you look at stuff like that. We look at our KPIs, right? We're not just looking at revenue and profit. I'm looking at how many loads did we ship this time last year? What was that window? What did that month look like for this particular client at that, 12 months ago? So we can get a real cross section of what's happening as it's happening versus, oh, well, we did, $15 million last year and we're on pace to do 18. Well, that doesn't really tell you a story though. That's comparing the last sentence of a chapter to the last sentence of another book. It's just kind of not really the right
Okay.
thing. So, to answer your question, it will definitely affect things. I mean, it's the price of buying a new truck. It's the money that companies use for financing, for what it would be new stuff or bridging gaps for employment benefits or not benefits, but payroll. Anytime you borrow money for some reason, it's just going to cost you more now than it would have 6 months ago.
Yeah. You talked a little bit earlier about a company that you worked with that went bankrupt. They were doing $200 million a year, and this is a
Yeah,
trucking.
let me clarify. I didn't work with them. I know of them.
Right. Yeah. That you were talking. Yeah, you were talking about them. And you kind of said, hey, they just filed for bankruptcy, and they've declared $20 million in this bankruptcy. And we kind of talked a little bit about cash flow management and obviously all of this before we started, but um, it, from an accounting perspective, I'm seeing a large opportunity, if you will, for people in your space to do effective planning and make sure that they understand their numbers. Because if they don't, things could change on a dime, and it could put you in a very tight financial pickle. What are you doing in your business to, obviously reviewing KPIs and looking at metrics and seeing how many cardboard boxes they're manufacturing, right? But what with the numbers, what are you doing in your business, or what are you teaching other people in their businesses that they need to be aware of?
I like that question a lot because we literally just went over this last night on a free call that we offer for Brokerz Edge. We call it Brokerz Edge Live, and what we do is we take individuals and invite them to the call. We go over topics, industry specific topics, and answer questions. It's an open forum for anybody that have access to me. It's an hour long call, 7 o'clock Central Time every Tuesday. And in that call, we talked about the KPIs that we go over. So we look at it by customer and also as a whole. So you're tabulating all this stuff as it goes down. And we legit do it in an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, it's nothing fancy.
Yeah.
But by pulling that information, first off, you know to ask the question, right? Secondly, you know who's the dead customer. I've got customers I've fired because they just aren't working anymore. And so I've had to look at it objectively in a way that if I'm doing $300,000 a year in revenue with a company and I'm only making $1,000 in whole, that company's not worth my time.
Sure.
I need to get rid of them and I need to move on to something else. I need to go find something to fill that in. And it happens a lot. Good customers turn bad. There's usually about a 5 to 7 year window when you have a relationship to where a customer is either really good and then just peters out on you, or something happens inside internally where they change management, they change the way they do things, something changes in that period of time. And so we know to expect that, and we're constantly shopping. We're always shopping for new customers. We're looking to keep that funnel full so that with the eventuality, it's not, oh man, this happened. It's, I knew that was going to happen, and now we've already got the fix in place for it. It's when everybody does it all at once that a company has a problem.
Okay, that makes sense.
We
So,
diversify too. We're very heavy in food. We do some different commodities. So the hopes is that when one is up, the other one's down. They kind of just balance each other out. And if everybody goes up, great, cool. you know.
what during for you guys during COVID? You mentioned earlier that food did really well. Obviously, people were at home eating, and or everyone was just ordering different things from Amazon and whatnot. What did bad during COVID for you guys?
Us personally, nothing. The rates, well, because here's what happens. We locked in some rates. We were very, nobody could have predicted what was going to happen,
Sure.
but we had a standard that was already set with the customers. And so when the market shifts, this can either be a good thing or a bad thing for a company.
Right.
In our case, it was a great thing because you had a bunch of trucks sitting around with a whole lot of nothing to do, and people panicked. So they were taking loads that they had no business taking. And we're starting to see that now, where you've got a lot of carriers that are taking loads that are offered to them that are well below what they should be paid. And they just want to move the truck. So there's like this instant gratification that they try to fill just to go, okay, let me get just down the road. Well, yeah, but you just lost $1,000 by doing that instead of staying where you're at, or negotiating for a better load, or putting yourself in a position that's different. And so that's, as great as my industry is, there's some predatory people out there that will take advantage of this type of market. We personally don't do this, and I preach this to my guys, and I've gone as far as just about that close to saying I'd fire you if you did that. But we want to give people dignity. We want to make sure that we're going to make money, but they're going to make a living too. These things really do affect how people feed their families. This really does affect if you're going to want to stay in the business altogether. And we're doing just fine as we are. We don't need to make you the reason. We don't want to be the reason why you go out of business.
How,
I'd
how
rather build that type of relationship with somebody, because the market does shift.
yeah.
Towards the end of this year and the beginning part of next, it's going to be crazy again. And I want to be able to go back to these guys and say, hey, remember when I took care of you? I need you to take care of me now. Now I need you to bring the rate down to a fair level, because I'm going to take a beating on this thing if we don't do this.
Yeah, how much of that is due to just the emotions tied to the uncertainty, or are people seeing things in your industry that would indicate quote unquote recession?
Well, I'm not embarrassed to say we are in a recession, guys. I
Yeah,
mean, I mean,
sure.
nobody, everybody dances around the word. I'm like, just accept it. Let's move on.
Yeah. By all definitions of the word, we are in a recession, and mostly what I mean is maybe a level of a recession like what we were in 08, 09.
It's going to take one industry to falter for us to just spiral out of control at this point. And then
Yeah.
there's a few that are teetering. I mean, I've been hearing real estate's not doing great. You know, the car industry finally found its legs, and has cars on the shelf now to buy, but nobody can
Yeah.
afford to buy them because they can't afford to borrow the money to get to the cars.
'Cause
So,
it's so expensive.
you know, I've got a friend of mine. He looked at coming to work for me. Works for a huge Chevrolet dealership, and he's like, I've got $100,000 in sales waiting for me. The cars are sold. I'm just waiting for them to come off the boat. I'm like, these guys are shackled to their jobs now. Because
Yeah.
I can't sell. All I'm doing is selling stuff that isn't here anymore. Even though we have cars on the lot, nobody wants these things. My really good customers can only afford this, so they're going to buy
Yeah.
these higher end cars.
So
Tahoes.
the drivers that are taking loads where they're losing money on them, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of them are taking those so that they can get money in the event that there's no money to get in the future, tied to that emotion. Would that be accurate?
So, in the instance of what we just use that the example of New Jersey to California, right?
Yeah.
Market would be different coming out of California to New Jersey. So
Right.
it's a game of averages. So if you're making a buck 50 a mile and you really need to make $2 a mile to run to break even, that means you better be getting 250 coming back.
Okay.
So what happens is these guys start cutting corners and they start just not really paying attention to that type of thing. It'll get better. All the stories people tell themselves as they're going out of business.
Sure.
That's what you get a lot of. And unfortunately, we don't have people that are running these companies a lot of times that are really knowledgeable in how to run a business. They go, okay, well, I can drive a truck and I can make a lot of money in trucking, which is 100% true if you do it right. But there's so many examples how it's not being done right, that where you get your information from will largely dictate how you operate. You can only operate on what you know, and if in the things that you don't know or what's going to kill you. When I was in business, when I first started being on my own and really starting to look to grow, it was about 2016, 17, when I met with a guy and he asked me, he says, what are your numbers? He was like a business coach. And I said, I don't know. He goes, well, go get them and come back next week. So I did. And we sat down and we looked, and that's how I was able to determine that I had to get rid of a specific customer to make room for anything else. He goes, this is your niche. This is where you make the most money. This is where you need to focus your efforts. Don't worry about any of this other stuff. Get rid of it. Focus on this. And then that's going to grow your business. That's going to allow you to do this stuff. And Chuck changed my life. Effectively, he said, look, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. You have to look at your numbers.
Yeah.
And so when these guys look at their stuff, they're going, okay, well, truck payment, insurance, fuel, driver pay, all the stuff that goes into just moving the truck. And then you've got the market, which doesn't always agree with what the cost of a truck is. So they've got to make smarter moves and reduce overhead. There's a massive amount of overhead when you own a truck. I mean, it's just insane.
I think when it comes to accounting, it's interesting because I think a lot of people view accounting as a cost. And the reason they view accounting as a cost is because a lot of people only use accounting to tell them what has happened in the past. And a lot of that information doesn't do them any good for what they're trying to accomplish or where they're trying to go, unless they use the information from the past to help them implement some sort of projection or analysis for what they're doing in the future. Now, you highlighted something really interesting, which I kind of want to segue into the next part of this conversation, Jason, which was a lot of people in your industry, they get into the industry without having the business acumen to be able to run an effective business. Now, you also help kind of coach and consult individuals who are getting into the brokerage space, right? Tell us a little bit about Brokerz Edge, what you're doing as far as helping people get into the brokerage space. But then my follow-up question to that is, do you work with people who you get to a point with them where you say, look, you're probably not going to be a good broker. You should do X, Y, or Z, whether that's just run trucks or manage trucks. So two questions, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Maybe the better way to start this is where our prospects come from. The people that come to these calls, the people that are interested in what we do, are typically existing brokers, people that want to scale their company. So they're like a one person operation. They're like, I want to do more. Okay. So you got that bucket. Then you've got the third one who is somebody brand new. Just, I'm interested in learning how to be a freight broker. And the fourth one is a dispatcher. There's this weird kind of hybrid type of thing where they're not quite a broker, they're not quite anything. They're a dispatch service.
Okay.
And we get a lot of those guys. The reason why somebody would go into that business is because it's like being a freight broker. You're dealing directly with one trucking company or, a stable of trucking companies, and you manage their process. Okay. So it's really easy to sell this to trucking companies. The problem is that there's no regulations. We're very regulated as a freight brokerage. We have to have our own insurance. We have to have surety bonds. We have to have actual authorities. These people don't have to have anything.
Okay.
I mean, really, Brady, you could start one today. I could give you a couple phone numbers here. Call these guys and tell them you're going to manage your business and watch. Like all of a sudden, okay, cool. You get this group coming in. So we've got these different buckets that are all coming in. And so when we talk to somebody, we meet them, we want to know where they're coming from first. And so when we talk to them, we kind of suss out where are you coming from, where are you going, and what are your intentions.
Okay.
So we really don't normally get people that are like, I want to try this. They've kind of, a lot of guys
already have experience.
Well, they've actually started companies and then they don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
The internet's really good at telling people how to get a freight brokerage. And Brokerz Edge really focuses on the next steps. What do you do in the operation? How do you scale your operation? How do you handle certain situations that come up? And we have products that we sell that back this up. We've got an introduction course. We've got a marketing course. We've got a follow-up course. We're about to launch a huge sales course. I'm in the process of filming that. We've got about 5 hours of footage filmed for that. And we're only about a third of the way through. So, I mean, it's going to be very robust. That's going to go over everything I know about selling directly to customers, but also selling to trucks. Because we're in the middle of this group, we need both parties to act right.
Yeah.
We need people to collaborate to get the job done. And our job is to manage that process. But when the market's easy, it's real easy to talk to trucks. They'll fall all over themselves to cover a load. But when it's hard, how do you negotiate with somebody that doesn't negotiate correctly? They don't operate on logic a lot of times because they feel like they've just been the whipping boy for the last 8 months. So they're it's our turn now. I've heard that. Term. It's our time to make money. You've made all the money before it's my time. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's very juvenile, actually. I'm shocked that you would behave like that. It's really weird. But unfortunately, because we pull from different countries and different ethnic backgrounds, you get a lot of different styles of negotiation and people that have different ideas of how business really works. So we go through that with our students, and we talk about different topics and different things, but we'll also handle real-time issues. So, for example, I've got a student, Marcus. He was just on the call last night, and we were talking about how to scale past his local operation. He lives in a part of Louisiana where he's got some great opportunities, but I really want him to get outside of that. And that's based on the experience that we have. Look at your local market. There's only so much you're going to do if you live in a smaller, mid-sized town. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I use myself as the example. I said, if I just focus on food manufacturers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's over 800 opportunities for me. That's a pretty big funnel.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a massive funnel, but that's a pretty big funnel for me just to work within while I'm still managing 2 other companies on top of the brokerage. So my time spending doing sales is very limited. So I want to make sure that I make the most impact when I'm doing it. And I'm very intentional when I call what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to do, because I want to make sure that our customers fit our model. With regards to the school, we've talked people out of certain products. I'm like, you're too advanced for the introduction course. This is not appropriate for you. I don't need the money. I want to help people. Our goal is to put 1 million people through the Brokerz Edge. I want to get introduced to 1 million people into being a freight broker. And by doing this, we're showing them how to do it the right way. There's so much bad information out there, Brady. It's upsetting at times to hear some of the stories that we hear from people who's like, it builds a lot of disbelief in what we do because we're like paying for the sins of somebody else's garbage. They've taught inappropriate methods or they've told them just crazy, outlandish things. And you're like, no, that's not even close to true. That can't be possible. How do you get from A to Z like that?
Yeah. I call it all the financial porn, and it happens 2 or 3 times a week. I'll get clients or other just random individuals that I know or that I've advised before or have done a presentation for, and they'll send me a video and say, hey, can I do this, or is this legit? And it's like, no, you can't, right? Yeah. Or trying to tell them, well, not in this situation, we would have to change X, Y, and Z for you to be able to do that, but here's the potential outcome and, pros and cons of that outcome. So what do we want to do? But there is so much financial porn. What other resources? What?
I like that. I've got a financial advisor, my guy, Jerry. I'm going to use that with him. He's like, I dump these weird things out. I'm like, hey, look what I found on the internet. He's like, dude, stop looking at the internet.
Yeah, 20% of what you see online is going to be true.
He's like, we're not flipping over to crypto on Thursday. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That's not a thing, dude. It's not a thing. Yeah. Don't worry about this stuff. I got this.
That's funny. What other resources are there for individuals who, if they did want to get into the brokerage space, or what is kind of that path that you would recommend that they take? If someone wanted to say, hey, I wanted to get into freight brokering, but I maybe don't have as much experience as someone else, do I go take a course like Brokerz Edge, or do I go become an associate broker with another brokerage firm? What would you recommend? What does that path kind of look like for someone?
Everybody's personal path is going to be a little different. So if you have money, you have the luxury of time. which means
Okay.
that you're able to learn some different stuff.
Yep.
Some companies will bring you in at a very menial salary and teach you how to do certain things, and it's up to you to grow within the company and really sharpen your skills. Um, that path isn't very long because they're not going to keep you on the payroll as they teach you how to do something unless they really believe in your abilities. You have to have something special that you
Yeah.
bring to the table. For 360, which is my brokerage, what we do is we have a 90-day probationary period, and through that time we give them a trajectory, and they get put on a steady diet of commissioned loads. But the idea is to transition them away from that into their own business. So we
Okay.
give them all the tools and all the knowledge to go out and get their own customers. Uh, it really is helpful, and really one of the first lessons we do in the introduction course is work your power base. Your power base, for example, Brady, would be, if you decide to be a freight broker tomorrow, you'd be talking to your family, the people that do the food broker,
Right.
that would be your power base. You'd be like, hey, listen, I'm hanging it up. I'm no longer going to do this stuff. No more podcasts, no more accounting. Forget about it. I'm a freight broker. You have the benefit, at least people are like, what's a freight broker? I get that all the time. What's a freight broker?
Eh.
I'm like, oh, dude.
So with
But yeah, we tell people work their power base. So, all of a sudden you got to scream from the top of the mountains. I'm a freight broker. What is that? I connect carriers with trucks and I move people's product. You know, and okay, cool. They don't really know, but they're kind of like, okay, do you know anybody who ships stuff? Oh, well, yeah, I ship boxes. No. We want production stuff. We want, how much volume can you ship? We want truckloads of
yeah.
stuff. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Hey, my cousin, I think he's in transportation. I think he does something with the flower company. I think they import flowers from Florida. Great. I'd love to talk to him. Could you get me an introduction?
Yeah.
It's a start. You're probably going to bomb, and that's okay, because you have to keep figuring this out. You have to keep going back to the table and going, okay, this didn't work. I didn't know enough to get through that conversation, but now I'm arming myself with this stuff. And that's what we do with Brokerz Edge. We give you the stuff. We arm you with the questions to ask and how to get more out of a prospect.
Okay.
We had one student, he he didn't know how to ask for a close. He was like, man, I make all these calls. I have these great conversations and nobody's doing any business with me. Real nice guy. He comes from an African country. He was actually a doctor over there. And when he moved to the United States, they didn't honor his medical bill. So he's like moments away from getting his doctor. He's like, I'm just making too much money here. He goes, it doesn't make any sense. So I call him Dr. Freight. Musa, he came to me. He says, I can't do all this stuff. I'm having great conversations, but I can't get anybody to pull the trigger. So, okay, let's walk through this. So we did a quick role play in front of everybody. And I was the customer. And he went through and I said, you're trying to ask him for the close, man. I said, let's do this. So I ran him through the whole thing again. I said, okay, now I want you to ask one question. It's like 5 words. Have you heard enough to do business today? He had this aha moment, and it was cool because I was watching, like, all these eyes start lighting up, like, oh man, now I get it. Like, you say that one thing and all of a sudden it's just like these light bulbs go off in everybody, right? It's so moving. That's really what I get out of this. I mean, like, it feels great. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It feels great when I'm able to help somebody like that because we're moving their personal economy. We're
Mhm.
giving them the opportunity to make a 6-figure income. I mean, Brady, really, if you show up to work and you do the minimal effort thing, you can make 40 grand a year doing this. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's like ashtray change. Like, I find that in my couch.
Yeah.
I want people going, hey, I just pulled down $250,000. I'm pulling down $300,000. I'm doing things I never thought were possible. I came from a blue collar background. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I'm doing things I never thought were possible.
Yeah.
If you told me at 18 that I'd be pulling down this kind of money, they're like, forget about it. You're not doing that. So he comes back to me the next week and he says, hey, I did what you said and I landed a customer and I shipped like 10 loads. So congratulations, man. He goes, no, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. And that alone, that was all free advice that we did on that call, 7:00 Tuesday night. It's Brokerz Edge Live. I mean, it's a real deal. We really do help people, but by bringing that type of information to people that you just don't know what you don't know. So we kind of use an example on a clock, right? You got 12 to 2. That's the stuff you know.
Yeah.
2 to 4. That's the stuff you don't know. And I'm going to teach you all the other stuff.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
I borrowed Brandon Dawson. He's a mentor of mine.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. We can use each other's. where can people go to, like I said before, freight is one of those industries that I genuinely am very interested in. I think there's lots of good investment opportunities and there's lots of great operational opportunities, both on the broker sales space and then also the production and delivery space in both of those. And I do like freight, so I'm glad we had this conversation. But where can people go, Jason, to obviously you have your Broker Edge live calls every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, I think is what you said, right? Where can people go to find out more information? Whether they wanted to obviously learn more about how they could work with you for production or delivery, right, through your Brokerage 360, or whether they want to become a better broker or learn how to become a broker through Brokerz Edge. Where can people go to find out more information about you?
Sure. Well, if you're a shipper or somebody who wants to ship some stuff and you're looking for answers and you want a reliable carrier, it's just go to 360freightsolutions.com and there's an inquiry page. Send us an inquiry and we'll be back to you pretty quick. Usually we in about 10 minutes. We're pretty quick at responding. If we're not, I want to know that we didn't because that means I got to talk to somebody. I'm on these guys. I'm like, come on, let's go. Did you know?
Right.
No kidding. We learned this in some sales training we took. If you respond to a web reply within like minutes after you get the reply, you have a 900% chance of closing that customer versus if you wait. I mean, it's so important to get that.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have Brokerz Edge Live, and spelled just like my shirt. Or I'm sorry, brokerzedge.com. And that's kind of home base for the company. It's got an inquiry page. We've got some products there. Shoot us an email. Myself or Connor will get back with you. You can look us up on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I mean, we're everywhere. And it's just a company name, Brokerz Edge.
And all of these will be in the show notes as well as links to your social medias, which I've got as well. So that's great. Jason, any last thoughts, any last words of advice or anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, no, again, Brady, I really appreciate you having me on the call, and I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope that your audience has gotten something valuable from this conversation, and if there's anything we can do to help, if you've got additional questions, email us at info@brokerzedge.com. I mean, that goes to everybody too, and we'll get right back to you as well. We're here to help. And that's really the purpose behind these companies is to do things right and show people how they're done. And if we can deliver that, if we can make this a better place for everybody and make everybody figure out how to make money, that's a win, man.
Forget the audience. I know I learned enough, and that's all I wanted. So that'll be good. No, but hopefully you did get a little bit of a little bit of education and opportunity, and it does something for you as well. I know I did, like I said before, but these are always opportunities for me to learn just like anyone else. And we definitely spent the last 40 minutes doing everything but slacking off. So thanks for hopping on and have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.